What's up, everybody? Week 13 is here. We got 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks until the fantasy playoffs. Zach, I'm stressing.
Yeah,
I'm
I
stressing.
am too. Big time.
I took the L last week in our
I
league,
did too. Yep.
but we're both still in the playoffs so far. You're the 5 spot, I'm the 6 spot, right? Is that what's going on right
Yeah.
now? And we're both 6-6 in this league, and we have like 5 teams. There's 6 teams in this league who are all 6-6.
Yeah.
so, and
So
it's just
teams, the teams,
what are we gonna do?
the teams in the 3 through 8 spot are 6-6, and then from 9 to 11, 3 other teams are 5-7.
This is going to be a ridiculous finish, and like we were talking about before we started the stream, this is way too much stress.
Yeah.
Like, we don't need the stress in our lives right now.
This is with the way the NFL season is going too. There's so much stress right now, and I can't believe it. We still have bye weeks coming up. There are still a couple bye weeks left
Dude,
to be had.
I have a couple players. I have like Jonathan Taylor. I have a couple players on bye in week 14, and I'm stressing out.
I think I have a big one in week 14. Yeah, his name is Justin Fields.
Oh no!
Please don't miss this next week and then go on to the bye. I need him to make this run, but it happens. It happens.
Connor in the comments said, ever since I started listening to you guys, I'm 3 now. Connor, what a coincidence!
Yeah.
What a
Is
coincidence!
It a coincidence? I don't know. We're 6-6. I guess coaches don't play. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess so. Appreciate you with the comment, Connor. Hope everyone's doing well on this Tuesday. We're gonna go over our waiver wires this week. For week 13. Not a really top heavy waiver wire pickup, but there are a couple names that I think are must pickups. And that's Treylon Burks and Zonovan Knight. Those are the main 2 guys I think that are, you kind of have to pick them up right now. And, we haven't heard much about Najee's injury just yet. But let's talk about this real quick from last night's game. Najee Harris, he left the game with an abdominal injury. It seemed like he got hurt earlier in the game, kind of tried to play through it, kept on coming out of the game. He wasn't in for like every play. Benny Snell ended up coming in for him. Ended up running relatively well, scored a touchdown. Jaylen Warren, can be back soon from that hamstring injury. He didn't play last night. Apparently, it's not a serious hamstring injury, according to Mike Tomlin. But Warren didn't practice at all last week. He could be he could be out this week as well, potentially. So it's a little tricky, trying to determine right now, who's going to be their starter in week 13. We don't even know how long Najee Harris would miss, or even if he does miss time. So if Jaylen Warren was healthy, he'd be the back we want, obviously. But since he's not, we might have to start Snell next week. If you need a running back, you need a flex play, something like that. If you need the running back start and you need to pick one, like you need like a running back to play, like I'll probably go Snell. Given that it's a hamstring injury for Warren, he probably won't be 100% this week anyway. Snell's not going to be ranked in like my top 24 or anything like that. Like he might not even be in my top 30. It's possible that it's just a true committee. I don't even think there are much. Are there any teams on bye this week?
There are a couple. I know the Cardinals are on bye.
That's right.
I'm not sure. There's probably another team.
I'm looking at it right now. So it's just 2 teams: Cardinals and Panthers. That's it.
And the Panthers have nobody. I mean, I guess DJ Moore came through for you.
Yeah, DJ Moore and
that's the only one they really want to think about for the Panthers. But Cardinals are a big one. But other than that,
Cardinals are a big one.
Fine. But
if this is a long-term injury for Najee, though, right? Like, you can afford to wait. I'd pick up Warren if he's available. Like, I'd rather pick him up because when he's back, he's going to be the guy. And he'll likely be a 3-down back, in Najee's absence. Next week with, if Najee and Warren miss, like I'd assume that it's a 1-2 punch between Snell and McFarland, with Snell being the 1A in that backfield, but it could get a little messy and it's not even a good offense.
Yeah, it's not a good offense. And that's the thing. They looked, I think, a lot better than they're going to be yesterday. I thought they looked all right. Benny Snell, 12 carries for 62 yards and a touchdown. That's not bad. And you got a catch. Yeah. That's fine. The other thing that I was kind of looking at is Najee Harris, these past 3 games, he hasn't looked like the Najee Harris that we've seen all season. He looked good. So it's really unfortunate the timing of this injury because he actually looked like he was, a lot better these past few weeks. I'm hoping he's not out too long. like we said, we don't know what this injury is going to look like. So hopefully it's nothing, and that maybe he'll miss a little practice time, but he doesn't miss game time, especially for this push to the playoffs. But he was looking good before he went out, as far as fantasy perspective goes, because he had his average point total the first like 10 weeks of 10 points in a limited time. So hopefully Najee Harris doesn't miss any time. If he comes back, I think we might want to start moving him up in the rankings a little bit, because it seems like he's doing a little bit better. But I think Benny Snell is a guy you can pick up if Jaylen Warren isn't back. I'm not expecting Warren to be back 100% in any shape or form, this week, even if he does play. So I think Benny Snell, if you need to, you can play him. But I'm not going to be starting him as like an RB2 even. I think as a flex, would be the best spot for him to be played if you need to.
Agreed. Jelani Woods, rookie tight end, ended up catching 8 of 9 targets for 98 yards last night. Super intriguing. Obviously, if you're looking for a tight end in the waiver wire, you're like, have I found my savior? But, Kylen Granson, he missed this game with an illness. And, there's been a 3-way rotation among this tight end group, all season long. He'll probably be back next week, given that it's an illness that he missed with. So this is probably going to revert back to a 3-way share among these tight ends. Woods ended up taking all the targets away from Paris Campbell, apparently.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be taking too much out of Woods' performance, other than we know that he can get it done in the future if he's given opportunity. But and that dude looks like a giant out there, dude.
Yeah, he is monstrous. What is he? I think he's 6'7". I'm not sure. He's a really
he's huge.
Can I pull it up? Yeah, he's 6'7". So he is a big target out there. And we talked about him a little bit. I remember we had a very short conversation about him coming into the season, about him possibly carving out a role. And I'm not saying he's going to have this type of role moving forward, because like you said, Kylen Granson was out. And Paris Campbell had 3 targets, which I don't know how you explain that.
No.
They
got
to get
he was
fixed.
getting open too.
Yeah, they got to get that fixed. But you need to pick up a tight end, like you said. maybe just maybe he can have some relevance, because 17.8. What did that place him for the week? What was his finish? He was a tight end too. The ceiling, the bar for being a tight end 1 nowadays is so low. You might be able to get away with picking him up and starting him next week. The only thing is they have a tough matchup against Dallas.
So we'll I don't even have him. I don't even have him in my top 20.
I wouldn't either. But if you want to take a dart throw, that's the way. Anything outside the top 5 or 6, it's just any given week.
Yeah. He's not a pickup for me this week. But
I'm not saying pick him up, but if you
Jonathan Taylor, he got the role that we wanted back last week. That he had like 2 weeks ago. And Deion Jackson, he ran a couple of routes, but he only ran 3, and Taylor ran 32. So Taylor, hopefully this role continues, and that's what last week Deion Jackson came in and played a lot of 2-minute snaps, but hopefully they realize that Taylor is the guy there. So Jackson didn't even get a touch in this game. That's what you want. So Taylor, just wanted to kind of tell you where the roller coaster is with Jonathan Taylor's usage. The good thing is that it's a roller coaster that stays near the top. It's not like there's no valleys.
There's no dip. Yeah. I mean, I think we hit the low point this season already. That was a couple of weeks ago when he was in and out of the lineup with injuries. Outside of that, the usage since Jeff Saturday has become the head coach, it's very promising. Even though, like last week, we said it was confusing why Deion Jackson was on the field in a game against the Eagles, right?
Yeah.
Is that what it was? Yeah. In that game where there was no reason to have Deion Jackson in the lineup in a game that you need to win. You don't have Jonathan Taylor out there. It made no sense. We had a discussion about that. You can listen to that podcast if you want to. But this week, it's right back to where we want it to be. He had 24 opportunities. Some of it came in the receiving game. I think he's a good play next week too, because Dallas has been bad against the run. So, the meter is pointing up with Jonathan Taylor.
100%. He's been averaging more than 100 rushing yards over the past 3 weeks. And he has hit 20 carries each of the last 3 weeks as well. So ceiling is pointing upwards for Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
Elijah Mitchell, he's going to be out for another 6 to 8 weeks. So he's out for the fantasy season. How this dude get a MCL injury on one knee? He's out for 6 to 8 weeks, comes back for a couple of games, and then gets an MCL injury on the other knee. And
he has just had horrific luck in his career so far, short career. Horrific luck with his injuries. Like, I can't believe it.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
He's a good running back, he's
really good.
He's a good runner. If you want to talk about running, just pure runners, you could put him in top 15, maybe top 10. I don't know.
He fits his scheme perfectly too.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it sucks to see that, but with this injury, I think give Christian McCaffrey 2 weeks and he's going to be back to the RB1 overall in fantasy. Because
I think
I
so.
don't think what's his name? Jordan Mason is going to be
Yeah.
taking significant touches from him. Christian McCaffrey,
Yeah.
we saw what he can do in this offense.
That's the point right there, right? It's like there was a reason why they were taking Christian McCaffrey off the field, and it's because Elijah Mitchell's a good running back. And now Jordan Mason, while he has some promise, does he have that same appeal to Kyle Shanahan to take Christian McCaffrey off the field for? And
No.
I'm not sure the answer to that is, that he's going to have the same type of impact that Elijah Mitchell had on Christian McCaffrey's workload. Now, the knee and Christian McCaffrey's knee rotation can play into this, right?
Yeah.
And that is the variable here that matters most, in my opinion. Not that Kyle Shanahan just wanted to take Christian McCaffrey off the field for any running back. I don't think that's the case. I think he only did that because Mitchell's really good. So now moving forward, it seems like the 49ers are going to be able to manage McCaffrey's knee rotation. That's what they said,
Yep.
which I think means that he won't practice a whole lot this week. But in the games, I think he'll be used more than he's been used with Mitchell healthy. Even this week, I think he could get close to 20 touches. I think it could happen, when you combine the rushing and the receiving work. So I think McCaffrey gets a bump moving forward. I think he'll get a big bump. Maybe if that knee irritation ends up going down, who knows if it will this season. I think he'll split a little bit with Jordan Mason, but it's Jordan Mason, right? Like he's not Elijah Mitchell. So, if it's not that bad, if the knee irritation isn't that bad for CMC, he'll likely get more work moving forward. That's kind of what I'm seeing here.
I think that we could temper expectations this week. I mean, it's a good matchup against Miami, but I would temper expectations this week because, if he does get any type of rotation, Jordan Mason gets more touches than, he should because they're trying to manage that injury. I could see that happening. But like I said, in 2 weeks from now, as long as there's no setbacks with this injury, I think he's going to be back to the RB1 following that week.
All right. I think that's all the news that we had for the most part. Also, what's his name? Wide receiver for the Bears. Sorry, I'm blanking.
Chase
today.
Claypool, Darnell Mooney.
Darnell Mooney is out for the season, which is that's terrible. That sucks. Sucks for him. It sucks for Justin Fields too. We talked about this yesterday, but it's official. He is going to be out for the year. Unfortunately, he's getting surgery. So yeah. All right, let's get into the waiver wire rankings. Week 13. If you have Treylon Burks in your waiver wire, and his availability is kind of all over the place, depending on what platform you're on. He's readily available on Yahoo and ESPN, but not as available on Sleeper. So I have him here at number 1 in case he is available in your league. The targets were kind of split, distributed a little bit for the Titans this week. But Burks' talent, is evident. Like whenever he's getting thrown the ball, he caught only 4 balls this week, but they went for 70 yards. He ended up falling on a Derrick Henry would-be touchdown.
Yeah.
So I would disregard that as a reason to like him more.
Yeah.
But the last 3 games, Ryan Tannehill throwing the ball a little bit more. 36 attempts, 27 attempts, 34 attempts. So next week against Philly, I can see him throwing some as well. So I think Burks, moving forward, is going to be a wide receiver 3 play, and has a lot of upside. He's an upside wide receiver 3 for me going forward. So if something like that is on the waiver wire, I do want to pick him up.
Absolutely. That was his first touchdown of his career, technically. He fell on it. I remember watching that play. I couldn't believe it, but
was that the first? Did he not score the? Oh yeah, he didn't score the week before.
He had no touchdowns. So that I thought was funny seeing that his first touchdown, he falls on it from Derrick Henry. But I digress. This Titans offense looks much better. Now that Ryan Tannehill is doing a healthy amount of passing. It's not high volume passing. It's never going to be high volume passing with this offense. But with Treylon Burks, he is far and away the best talent in the wide receiver room for the Titans. I mean, Robert Woods is there, but he's always just been, a compliment. He's solid, veteran, quarterback friendly. But Treylon Burks looks really good. Even though he only got 6 targets, 4 catches. He took the one. The one was a bomb. I think it was another 50-yard bomb, that he caught. So he's definitely a deep play threat. We haven't seen much of his ability after the catch, but we know he has it. In matchups the next few weeks, against Philly, that's going to be a good game. Could potentially be a shootout because, the Eagles defense looked pretty bad against the Packers. And then they played the Jaguars the week after that. And then the Chargers the following week. It's a good schedule lining up for Treylon Burks moving forward. He should not be on your waiver wire, but if he is, go get him. Like you said, he's an upside wide receiver 3. And I think that upside is very high. I think it's solid wide receiver 2 upside that you're looking at. Sitting on the waiver wire 2 weeks before playoffs, you can't let that sit there.
100%. And I'm surprised too. I'm surprised he's available. On Sleeper, he's available in like 30% of leagues. 32%
and
of
that
leagues.
Makes sense.
But
yeah,
which is great. No, that's good considering. But then on ESPN and Yahoo, he's available in less than 50%, which isn't good. Usually, ESPN's numbers are a little lower, but I was surprised to see a number on Yahoo. So he should be picked up for sure. Now, if I needed a running back, I'd try to pick up Zonovan Knight. Have him here at number 2. He's a must pick up this week for me. I'm not blowing my fab on him. I am blowing my fab on Treylon Burks. Like I'll put up to 50% of my fab on Treylon Burks, and then Zonovan Knight, maybe 20 to 30%. I would say 30% is a solid number. If you really, really need a running back this week, do your thing. Do what you got to do to make the playoffs. If you got to blow your fab, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a risky move. But the word for Michael Carter on his injury is that it's not a serious ankle injury. It's a low ankle sprain, not a high ankle sprain. That's good news for him. I'd assume he's still missed like 1 week at least. So James Robinson was a healthy scratch this past week, and he can be involved this week, and I would assume he'll be active if Michael Carter is out. But Knight was the one who was not a healthy scratch. He was in the rotation with Carter to start the game. Knight was only a few snaps behind Carter before he got hurt. And as I spoke about yesterday, Zonovan Knight is a forced missed tackle machine. Like he was one of the best in college football in that regard last season. And in the Power 5 at that, he was there with Bijan Robinson and Dameon Pierce in forced missed tackles last year. And just in this game on Sunday, he had 9 forced missed tackles on 17 touches. So, he was one of my dynasty sleepers this offseason. And, I was definitely disappointed in his draft capital. Well, didn't really have any draft capital because he was undrafted. But this is like all to say that, if Michael Carter misses a game or two, I think Bam Knight can be a solid start for you this week. Now, Minnesota's rushing defense is tough this week, but it's possible that he gets some work in the pass game to alleviate that. He'll get some volume, I would say. And I think he's pretty capable in the pass game as well, like we talked about yesterday. So if you need a running back, he would probably be the guy that I pick up and play this week with Michael Carter likely out.
Yeah, Zonovan Knight, we've seen with Mike White, he had 3 targets, and it's not like humongous numbers, for a running back, but, that's enough to keep him fantasy relevant, especially if he's going 14 for 69 on the ground. That's a nice mix of opportunity. It's right in the middle, but we've seen what Zonovan Knight can do when a guy that can force tackles like Zonovan Knight does gets 17 opportunities in a game. He's going to do something with that. And he looked really good. So I think we can kind of, put him into – he's definitely startable. I don't want to call his upside very high. Like you said, it's a tough matchup against Minnesota, but Minnesota lets up a lot of points. He could easily get in for a touchdown. And Mike White, like I said, he likes to throw it to running backs. Even though it only translated into 3 targets for Zonovan Knight, he did catch all 3. This is definitely a type of move. It's going to be short term, assuming Michael Carter's injury doesn't get worse or anything. He doesn't suffer any setbacks. I think James Robinson's going to play next week, but definitely, I think when you look at the eye test, James Robinson, he was good to begin the season on the Jaguars, but he hasn't really been phased in too much with the Jets, which is weird considering they traded for him. But that's besides the fact. Zonovan Knight looked really good, and there's no reason that shouldn't be, they shouldn't be making the field at least, and getting a good amount of touches on this offense.
Yeah, 25% of Mike White's targets went to running backs this past week. So, if it's condensed to 2 running backs this week instead of 3, we could see a good amount of targets this week, especially if Minnesota, if this ends up being a game where the Jets have to throw the ball, you never know. I'm excited for this game for the Jets, man. This is a big one, right? Like Minnesota has a really, really good offense. This is going to test the Jets defense for sure. Justin Jefferson, right, on the outside against DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner. That's going to be fun to watch. So I'm looking forward to see what the Jets can do against, I think, a legit Vikings team. This is going to be a kind of like a statement type of game if the Jets can pull off the win.
Yeah, as a Cowboys fan, I hope you guys mop the floor again against them. You know what I'm saying? You have the tools. Sauce Gardner versus Justin Jefferson, that's going to be like popcorn. I know Pro Football Focus, ever see the posts?
Love it.
They're definitely going to be throwing that out there as a matchup to watch.
Sauce probably won't be shadowing him, but they have 2 good corners, DJ Reed and Sauce, on the outside, and wherever Justin Jefferson lines up, as long as it's on the outside, I would assume, if I were them, I would scheme him up out of the slot a little bit more, a little bit extra this week. against the Jets for sure.
It's going to be a good matchup because now that Mike White is playing, you don't need fantastic quarterback play with this defense that the Jets have. And that's what they're going to get from Mike White. He was good. And he looked really good against the Bears, but that was against the Bears. We'll see how he plays. But I think Mike White is definitely higher offensive ceiling right now than Zach Wilson.
He's intriguing, and I have him, on these rankings at number 9 as a quarterback pickup. So if you're looking for a streaming quarterback this week against the Vikings, Swiss cheese pass defense, like I think he's a solid stream. Like I'd pick him up and start him, and then you never know. Like maybe he ends up being a decent quarterback, and he has a couple good matchups, coming up, and we'll talk about that just here in a second. But first, Donovan Peoples-Jones, I have him at number 3 here. He should be rostered at this point. He's been getting it done. He's probably just not rostered in like shallow leagues, like 8 to 10 team leagues. Like he might not be rostered in, but if you're playing in a normal 12 team league, he should be rostered. And this past week was the first week since week 3 where he didn't have a solid game, right? You have Deshaun Watson coming back this week. It's in the realm of possibilities that Peoples-Jones ceiling increases with Watson under center. And even in 10-team leagues, because of that potential ceiling increase, he's worth a pickup. So, at the very least, he just continues what he's been doing, and you have yourself a low-end wide receiver 3 every week. But, he's worth picking up in case Deshaun Watson can elevate him a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that's very possible. We'll see how Deshaun Watson looks. There's a chance, you have to knock some rust off. But if you're going to knock the rust off against anybody, you want it to be against the Texans, and that's who they have this week. So I think Donovan Peoples-Jones, he has a good chance to, get right back on the horse and be a solid fantasy wide receiver for you moving forward. This was the first time that we saw that 10-point floor broken, like you said, in a lot of weeks. So I'm not worried about Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's been getting it done regardless of whether Amari Cooper has a good game or not. It was actually a quiet day, much quieter than I thought it was going to be for the Browns receivers, but it was fine. It was all right. 1 week, we'll give him a little leeway here. I guess the 2 weeks before, he actually was a little bit higher than what he had been putting up. He had 14 and 17 points, where before the 5 weeks before that, he was between, I think, 10 and 12 points exclusively. So he gives and he takes away, but I think he can get back to being a solid wide receiver. I'm not worried about him at all. He's been a mainstay on these waiver wire pickups, for a long time now. So if he isn't, there's no reason not to pick him up.
I'm kind of hoping that he just he doesn't get rostered in more than 50% of leagues, so we can just have him on the waiver wire show for the rest of the season.
At this point,
at this point, he's been on every week. Let's just keep him on. I want him to be a resident of this waiver wire show.
Yeah, I'll for the graphic, I'll put a little house for him. We'll get him a nice little property there. He can just stay on the waiver wire graphic.
We talked about Jaylen Warren earlier at the top of the podcast. I have him at number 4. He might not be back this week, but we'll monitor his practice reports. We'll also hopefully get more details about Najee Harris's injury. So if this is a long-term injury for Najee, you want to pick up Jaylen Warren first before any of these other Steelers running backs.
Yeah, that's what it's going to be. And we talked about Jaylen Warren's been on the waiver wire post a lot, recently too. And we talked about this if anything would happen to Najee, that he would be a good, fantasy running back, just to plug and play for you if that would happen. And it's too bad he's also still, dealing with that injury. But when he comes back, if Najee misses time, he'll be a nice starter, no question.
Yeah, apparently his Warren's hamstring injury isn't that bad. So hopefully, according to Mike Tomlin, hopefully he'll be back soon, maybe this week. Maybe.
They're always tough to gauge. We saw that with Keenan Allen's hamstring injury.
Of course.
With any hamstring injury, once you get a hamstring injury, they tend to keep flaring up, throughout a career. It's weird. We've seen that a lot with a bunch of players, but hopefully it's just a one and done thing, at least for this season. We don't want to see him get injured, obviously, in seasons after this, but hopefully he can come back from this and not, aggravate it.
Mack Hollins, I got him at number 5. This might be a little bit high, but it's only because if you need a wide receiver, he's been getting it done without Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow in the lineup. He went over 10 PPR fantasy points in 4 of his last 6 games since their bye week. So he's a flex play if you need one, right? Not a must pick up or anything like that. But, if you need a wide receiver to plug in, wide receiver 3 to plug in, you need a flex play to plug in, I think you can pick him up, start him. And honestly, doesn't even matter what the matchup is. It's just he puts up points at random times. Derek Carr ends up doing things random times. Hollins had a good game against Denver. Okay, so I wouldn't overthink it with Mack Hollins. Just throw him in there if you need a start.
Yeah, Hollins he had a good game against Denver, and 2 weeks before that at Jacksonville, he had 3 points. So,
Right.
There's no guessing. There's no telling when he's going to, have a good game and when he's not going to have a good game. But it looks like the floor is enough, and maybe the ceiling at a flex spot is enough. 16 points this past week against Seattle. Even with Josh Jacobs having 48 himself, 303 yards from scrimmage, he still got it done for you. He caught the pass touchdown, so that really buoyed his production. But that's the way it's been all season. He's been like an on and off contributor in the Raiders offense. And when he does show up and, he gets enough targets, 5 or 6 targets, he gets the job done for you. So there's no reason not to have him rostered, just in case, especially if you're thin at receiver. He can fill in. We got a couple more bye weeks coming up. I'm not saying he's going to match DeAndre Hopkins and Marquise Brown are out this week on bye. He's not going to match their production, but he can fill in nicely for you and at least give you a shot because the floor is enough that you're not going to lose because of Mack Hollins. Hopefully not, but we've seen he's on and off.
Yeah. And if you don't need a wide receiver start this week and you're willing to keep some guys stash, I'd rather stash Skyy Moore, who I have at number 6. I'd rather stash Elijah Moore, who I have at number 7. They're both upside adds to me. I'd rather have Skyy Moore. I have above Elijah Moore, but you have to be patient with these guys. Juju will see more snaps this week after being limited last week. That's partly why Moore was able to get in the field more. Also, obviously, Kadarius Toney's injury as well because of that. But he has been targeted at a very, very high rate per route run this year. Just last week, he was targeted on 40% of his routes. And he's going to be a good receiver. It's just a matter of when he gets a bigger role. He only had 15 routes this past week, even with Juju limited. So it's just a matter of when he gets a bigger role. Like, I want him stashed in case Kadarius Toney doesn't pan out. And by the way, Toney is considered day-to-day right now with that hamstring injury, according to Andy Reid. And Elijah Moore also isn't a full-time player just yet. And with Mike White back under center, we could see Moore start to get more playing time. And he was 3rd in reps. The Moors. I just realized this right now.
A bunch of Moors getting more playing time.
I just put the 2 and 2 together right now. This is whatever. But he was 3rd in routes behind Garrett Wilson and Corey Davis. And the hope is that, he starts to become more of a mainstay in their 3 wide receiver sets. We know he's talented. With Mike White there's more upside in the passing game. I'm just betting on the talent here as a stash pickup. He's available in a ton of leagues.
Yeah. So the 2 more, like you said, they're definitely prospective ads. It looks like Mike White, he's a non-discriminating quarterback. He's happy to throw it to anybody. Where Zach Wilson, he was targeting Garrett Wilson a little bit. Things really fell off after the game against the Patriots. But, he wasn't throwing to Elijah Moore. And now Elijah Moore, I'll take 2 catches and a touchdown for what we've seen from him. I know you said you have to be patient with these guys. Elijah Moore, I can hear the people that drafted him saying, we've been patient. It's week 13. But there's no reason not to stash Elijah Moore with Mike White at quarterback because the offense looked good and it was in like a monsoon, which I thought was pretty impressive, for Mike White, at least coming in and having such a good passing game. And with Elijah Moore being a contributor, there's no reason not to pick him up. And then with Skyy Moore, he's just an upside pickup. Like you said, he's going to be good when he gets that time, like you said. But right now, it's just a little shaky. So we'll see how it goes. I'm not sure if Kadarius Toney is going to pan out. You said he's day-to-day. That's like getting the spinning wheel of death for cursor, on the computer, because you don't know what you're going to get. Is he going to start? Is he not going to start? We've seen that kind of thing happen before. Justin Fields was day-to-day, and he missed some time. So I would say with him getting the day-to-day designation early in the week, I would say maybe Kadarius Toney misses again this week. We'll see how things pan out.
I would assume Toney misses again this week. Yeah. Like, if I had to guess right now, I'd say he misses this week. I don't see him coming back this week. But I think Skyy Moore, he has the talent, to turn into something. And, we were both high on him coming into the year, coming into the NFL. I think that he's going to be a good player. And with his opportunities, he's looked good this season. I'm surprised that he hasn't come on more. They have like guys like Justin Watson playing every single snap.
Yeah.
I can't stop saying more.
Yeah. Get it?
Can't stop.
It's fun. Yeah. He's surprised he hasn't come on more. That is funny. But yeah. No, I'm hoping we see Skyy Moore get some more opportunity. And it could happen, with Kadarius Toney missing time. He looked good. Maybe Andy Reid draws up some more, packages for him. But it's not like the receiving room in Kansas City is crowded with talent. I mean, they have Marquez Valdes-Scantling and Juju Smith-Schuster ahead of them. And both of them are good. But, Skyy Moore could definitely compete for some touches moving forward.
At number 8, I got Kyren Williams. We talked about him on yesterday's podcast, right? His snap percentage went all the way up to 70%. on a team without too many weapons, the hope is that he gets used in the pass game more.
Yeah.
Right. He is their passing down back. He also led the team in carries as well this past Sunday. So usually I have running backs like this, like 70% of snaps, like if they're available in the waiver wire, ranked higher. But this offense is just a shit show right now. Like I'm taking a few upside shots, before I pick up Kyren Williams, like Skyy Moore and Elijah Moore. But for example, like if I don't need a wide receiver, like I'm not picking up Mack Hollins before Kyren Williams. You know what I'm saying?
Even though that's where he is on the list. But
yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, I have
there's
Mack
nuance
Williams
to this.
I have Mack Hollins at 5.
Yeah.
But it's like if I need a wide receiver.
Yeah.
But if I don't,
there's nuance to it.
Then just go with Kyren Williams, I would say.
Yeah, every team's going to have needs. So if you need a running back, obviously the running back's going to be at the top of your waiver wire list. If you need wide receiver, you're going to have the wide receivers at the top of your list. We talked about Kyren Williams. He's a player that doesn't suck on an offense that sucks. That's Dameon Pierce type stuff. And we saw that kind of production. He actually looked better than Dameon Pierce has these last few weeks. If Kyren Williams, like you said, could be getting 70% of snaps and a little bit of work in the passing game, that's enough to be rostered at this point, because running backs are few and far between on the waiver wire. Only injuries make them really relevant. It's been a revolving door running back for the Rams the whole season. It looks like Kyren Williams is going to be, the most stable part of this backfield moving forward. He might have a grip, on the starting job, at least the majority of the touches the rest of the way, because they don't have anyone else they want to turn to. Cam Akers has just been a flop. Darrell Henderson's out of the picture. Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, they're missing so many guys. Somebody has to take the ball and move it downfield. It's going to be Kyren Williams, if anybody.
I got Mike White here at number 9. It's possible that he shines in this scheme. We've seen a couple big ceiling games from him in the past. We also saw some not so great days for him, and he got benched eventually. So, he has weapons. If you think, if you've been streaming quarterbacks and you need one this week, I'd pick him up, start him this week against Minnesota. Great matchup. But also there's a chance, like I said earlier, that, he's good moving forward. So in the fantasy playoffs, he has Detroit and Jacksonville at home. And he has Seattle week 17 in Seattle. So that's not bad right there. You know what I'm saying? These are matchups where, he can have some big days. So that's why if his receivers are healthy, I think he could do some things. And, he could be a potential, he could take you to fantasy championship, as your quarterback, if you have a solid team, I wouldn't be surprised, if you put some decent numbers.
Yeah. I mean, I saw a post somewhere. I think it was NFL Fantasy, just the NFL Fantasy account. They said the league winners are out there somewhere and we got to see who they're going to be. There could be Mike White at this point. It's funny how he's come on, and that matchup, those matchups that you just rattled off, they sound really good. I mean, that's assuming Mike White holds on to the job. We know Zach Wilson is there. I was surprised he didn't even dress for the game. I thought maybe they'd have him on the sideline. I didn't know it was a complete deactivation.
No, so it's a deactivation and Flacco's the backup.
Yeah.
So that's how it is at this point.
I don't think, unless Mike White has a disastrous game. I know we saw him throw 4 picks last year in a game. But unless he has a disastrous game, Mike White should be starting, the rest of the season, maybe, assuming they don't go back to Zach Wilson. I don't think they have a reason to, because Zach Wilson, his offensive production couldn't even, it's not even close to matching what Mike White did,
seriously,
just 2 days ago.
I think if Mike White ends up shitting the bed, I think Flacco's going to come in.
Yeah, that's your best bet. Now I think it's with Zach Wilson, deactivated. It's going to be hot hand.
Yeah.
And Mike White, there's no reason for it to not be hot hand, because sometimes, just switching them in a lineup will give them a little bit of energy. We saw Mike White come in. He had a big game and he kind of cooled off. And then this year, he came in, he had a big game, and we'll see if he cools off. I'm not sure that's going to happen, though, because they have a lot more playmakers now than they did last year at this time. And the offensive line has been pretty good for the Jets, too. So they can keep him clean. He can do his thing.
I got Darius Slayton at number 10. He's averaging 12 PPR fantasy points per game over his last 7 games. So, again, another solid plug-and-play flex if you need one. Richie James is also a potential in deep leagues as a PPR flex play out of the slot against Washington. He's not on this list. Our producer's frantically looking for him. He's not here. Don't worry, Mike. But, he's just another guy on the Giants that, I think, Washington has been letting up some points to slot wide receivers. So I figured I'd mention his name. Just because of the fact that Wanda Robinson's out for the year. Richie James kind of took that spot in the slot. And, if you're in like a 14-team league, you need some random wide receivers to pick up. He's one of them.
Yeah. Slayton,
go ahead.
He's quietly been one of the quality wide receivers that the Giants have had. He's quality. He's not, super great. He's not bad. He's just a quality receiver that you can rely on, and that's the production we've seen out of him the past few weeks. There's really nobody else, like you said, Richie James. There's nobody else in this Giants passing game that's going to, really take any targets. So if they're throwing it, Darius Slayton's going to have enough targets to give you a nice floor each week. And he actually looked good. He mossed Anthony Brown. So he has a little upside, I think, with his talent. He's more talented than anybody else on that Giants roster right now. Obviously, outside of Wan'Dale Robinson, who's injured, and he's going to be missing the rest of the season. But with Daniel Jones at quarterback, the ceiling is never high.
No. Benny Snell, have him here as a pickup at 11 in case Najee and Jaylen Warren are out. I'd expect Schnell to share the backfield with Anthony McFarland, but Snell was the 1A after Najee went out last night. But we talked about that at length. Just in case Travis Etienne's injury causes him to miss a game, even though all signs are pointing towards him playing this week, it's better to, maybe be on the side of caution and not let JaMycal Hasty just sit on the waiver wire. At the same time, we might see Darrell Henderson come in and share that workload a little bit. They did sign him, before last week. He was a healthy scratch, probably because he just didn't know the offense. But, Hasty's worth a pickup just in case. And I'll probably rank him as like an upside flex play. I don't think he'll be in my top 24 this week.
And that's only if Travis Etienne misses. I mean,
if Travis Etienne misses.
Yeah. I don't think JaMycal Hasty. There's not a whole lot of upside with this. It's more like you said, just in case, because we've seen players, they're supposed to play. I think most notably, I think they were expecting Jamar Chase to play last week, and they didn't. So these kind of things, they happens all the time. Yeah. So these kind of things, they can change on a dime right before game time too. We saw injury things happen with the Bears quarterbacks, and it was a mix-up. Obviously, not many people were scrambling to pick up a Bears quarterback to start each week, but you never know with injuries, and we'll see how it goes. Just add him if you have the space.
Exactly. Ty Johnson, I have him here at number 13. Instead of 2 pass-catching running backs for the Jets, there might be just 1 primary pass-catching running back, most likely in Ty Johnson. We mentioned Mike White, 25% of target share, 2 running backs last week. We've seen him pepper his running backs in the past. So there's still a chance that happens this week. Tough Minnesota front. It's possible that, the Jets might look for the running backs more to supplement the run game. So he's like a deep league play, I would say. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a little extra opportunity with Michael Carter out. But if you're desperate at running back, I think he is in play to start for you as a flex if Michael Carter's out this week.
Yeah, this is a Jets takeover of the waiver wire. I think this is our 4th Jets player on the waiver wire.
4th Jets player. Unbelievable.
Yeah. So, well, that's the way it's been. There's a bunch of turnover at the position. The Jets have been hammered with injuries at running back this season. That's what you're going to get. And then the quarterback obviously is mixed up. Mike White looks like he's going to be a good option for these running backs. So there's no reason not to have him on the waiver wire. He's going to be the pass catching back, assuming Michael Carter's out. I think that's, pretty much a given. And they've been using him oddly, these past few weeks anyway. Even over like James Robinson, which is a little confusing. You said a couple weeks ago, you said the past couple weeks that we've been seeing too much of Ty Johnson. He didn't look bad. He didn't look bad, but when you have the other talent in the backfield, you're wondering why he's playing. But it looks like he might be in line for a little bit more of an increased workload. And the offense, if they can be anything close to what we saw, it's going to be fancy conducive enough for him to be a starter. I don't think you're going to be starting him at any of your running back slots. I think flex is where I'd start him. That's the way it is with a lot of these waiver wire guys, but he should be in line for some receiving work that will make him relevant. It's a safer floor than it was these past few weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Jordan Mason, I have him here at number 14. This really comes down to, he's the next running back up behind Christian McCaffrey. So it makes sense to stash the guy who will likely get either, work with McCaffrey while he deals with his knee irritation, or just treat him as a stash in case anything happens to CMC and his knee issues get worse, right? No Elijah Mitchell for the rest of the fantasy season. They traded away Jeff Wilson, so Mason's next up.
Yeah, and that's what it is. This is like double duty with Jordan Mason, like you said, because he's going to be, backing up Christian McCaffrey pretty much the rest of the season if he plays. And if Christian McCaffrey doesn't, if he ends up missing time, he's a running back in a 49er scheme. He should be good. We've seen running backs do really well. The schemes that they run. So I think Jordan Mason, he's a decent pickup. I'm not starting him if Christian McCaffrey plays, but if anything would happen, if Christian McCaffrey misses some time, that's the only reason I could see him going in the lineups this week and moving forward.
I'm sorry. I have Van Jefferson here at number 15. So, sorry. I should have kept myself muted while I'm like just trying to clear my throat here.
No, you're good.
Van
It's gonna
Jefferson
come
at
out of
13.
nowhere. The
Do
people
you
that are
think
listening to it.
I know, right? People are just like, yo, relax.
Faraz has something to say, guys. Does he have your attention?
Do I have your attention now?
Sorry.
I got Van Jefferson at 15 here. Do you think he's a little bit low? He had a 29% target share last week. I'm just afraid of this offense, dude. Like, I don't know what Bryce Perkins is going to do.
Yeah.
You know, he did get almost a 30% target share. He did catch a touchdown this past week. It seems like he's their number one wide receiver for the rest of the year with A-Rob out, Cooper Kupp out.
Yeah.
Like, should he be ranked a little bit higher?
Or maybe no? A little bit. Maybe.
I see your hesitation.
Like, if we could go back to the first slide quick to just see what other wide receivers we have on the waiver wire. I'm not sure, but I'm not sure I put him over any other receivers. I mean, Darius Slayton, no, I wouldn't put him over Darius Slayton. Elijah Moore, Skyy Moore. Their perspective ads. If you want someone to fill in right now and start for you, I would take him over Skyy Moore and Elijah Moore. Right. Mack Hollins.
Makes sense.
I would take Mack Hollins over him. So yeah. I don't think he's too low. I think he's right about where he should be. But this offense is bad. And as bad as the offense was, Bryce Perkins filled in admirably. You know, he's an undrafted free agent. He did what he could with very limited weapons. If anybody's going to be catching the ball, I'm feeling like it's going to be Van Jefferson. I mean, Ben Skoranek, not much of a factor at all. So I think that you can pick him up, start him as a flex at best. And if he does better for you, you know, good. It wasn't like a bad matchup against the Chiefs either. Their defense isn't fantastic. So I wouldn't expect much from him. But, you know, if it ends up, you have nothing to lose picking up Van Jefferson. He ends up, you know, producing 9 or 10 points, a solid floor like Donovan Peoples-Jones. You know, you're not going to be upset.
We just got a notification from Tom Pelissero, tweeted that Josh Jacobs is not expected to practice much this week, you know, if at all, because of the calf strain. He'll get around-the-clock treatment in hopes of playing Sunday against the Chargers. What does that mean to you?
So that sounds like it's a little bit worse than, you know, we originally hoped. It didn't look like it didn't look bad on that 86-yard touchdown run last week.
It did not.
We'll see. I think he'll play. Even though it looks bad, I think he'll play. If he doesn't, I would be surprised. I don't know. Is Amir Abdullah the pickup there?
I don't know, man. Because Amir Abdullah might not, you know, I can see Amir Abdullah, you know, his value going up. But I would have to think that, you know, Zamir White, you know, will be the early down guy, you know, moving forward. You know, he's looked good in the preseason. He looked good in the few touches that he had on Sunday. If I were to pick up anybody, I think it would be Zamir White. Right. And I would pick him up, you know, as somebody that either number one, you know, he either starts for Jacobs this week if Jacobs misses the game, or two, you know, you keep him on your roster while Jacobs plays the Chargers, because, you know, and plus they're playing the Chargers, right? So you want the guy who's going to be running the ball against them, which is going to be Zamir White if Jacobs misses.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I'm playing it. If Zamir might, if Josh Jacobs does play, there's still a risk that he ends up aggravating that calf, and then you have Zamir White on your roster. So I still want to kind of pick him up, and I think Amir Abdullah is probably also a legit pickup. So let's slide Zamir White. Let's see, where would I slide him? I'll probably slide him above Kyren Williams. Maybe
that's what I was looking too.
Yeah, right. Probably around that spot right there. If you really, you know, if you're looking for the most upside, that's probably where I would do it. Above Kyren Williams, right below Elijah and Skyy Moore. I mean, even, you know, even above Skyy Moore, I'm okay with. Even above like Elijah Moore, I'm okay with it there.
The other thing is, this is a very early report, so there's a chance, you know, we don't have to worry about this at all if Josh Jacobs plays.
But sure, it's just since we got to put on waiver claims today.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think he should be picked up, definitely. And then I would put Amir Abdullah right under him. I would say, like, maybe, you know, maybe after Mike White, maybe, or maybe Kyren Williams, something like that, around that same range. But yeah, both these guys end up and should be picked up. You know, just in case. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
All right, who else do we have? Right in the middle. Yep.
All right. So we got who else do we have here? We got Nico Collins at number 16. He got a decent target share this past week. We got a new quarterback in Houston. So it's like, are they really going to play better? Like, is Nico Collins really going to be any better than he was?
No.
But
the offense is bad.
The offense is bad, but he is getting targets, and he's not like he's not putting up any points. 10. He's had 10 PPR fantasy points, over 10 PPR fantasy points each of the last 3 weeks. Well, not 9.8 against Washington, but you get the points. 9 targets last week, 7 targets the week before, 10 targets the week before that. At least 5 catches each of the last 3 weeks. So there's a little bit of room there. Cleveland is a decent matchup, for perimeter wide receivers. So I'm cool rolling him out there as a flex this week. Streamer wide receiver if you need one. Tyler Allgeier, he's splitting this role 50-50 with Cordarrelle Patterson. The only difference is that Patterson is running more routes than Allgeier, but in terms of the run game, these two are splitting things very evenly, and it's been like that over the last few weeks. And it doesn't look like it's going to change because we've had multiple weeks now where the carries and the snaps on early downs have been pretty much right up the middle.
Yeah, right up the middle, says it exactly. They both had 11 carries. So that's what you're going to see for the rest of the season. Tyler Allgeier, he doesn't have the receiving upside, but he looks good running. I don't think he's ever going to surpass Cordarrelle Patterson's usage. Obviously, they like Cordarrelle Patterson in Atlanta, and they're giving him the touches. But Tyler Allgeier, I want to say he's worth a start. His workload is very limited. It's limited to just carries, though. That's the only problem. So his weighted opportunity isn't going to be very high, and that doesn't translate well. He had 54 yards. He might have looked good doing it on 11 carries, but it only amounts to 5 points. I'm not starting him, but you should definitely have him on your bench just in case anything would happen to Cordarrelle Patterson.
If you don't need to start this week, you might not want to pick him up. They have Pittsburgh, which is a tough rushing defense this week, and then they have a bye in week 14. So just keep that in mind. You might not want a roster clogger for the next 2 weeks. But, if Patterson were to get hurt or anything like that, Allgeier, I think, can, we saw this backfield kind of become a little bit of a mess without Patterson. However, I think Allgeier's a pretty good running back. And I think there's a chance, there's a chance that he ends up, I brought no water with me, to this podcast.
Darth Vader coming out.
Yeah. I have, I didn't bring any. I feel like I like Allgeier, man. I think he's a good talent. So I think, if Patterson were to get hurt again, if that ever were to happen, I think Allgeier can actually get more of a workload than he's got in the past.
Yeah. You talk about him maybe being a roster clogger, these next 2 weeks. I think there's a good chance. There's a good chance, assuming this next game plays out how we're expecting it to. It's similar to the way it's played out the past few weeks. I think there's a good chance he's still on the waiver wire in 2 weeks. So
yeah, I agree. Foster Moreau, he caught a touchdown last week. He ran about on 95% of dropbacks this past week, 19% target share. So, if you need a tight end, he's one of the best tight end pickups that you can get right now, pretty much. And if he's available in your waiver wire, he probably shouldn't be available in your waiver wire, but if he is, he is rostered in less than 50% of leagues, so he should definitely be picked up moving forward, and you can start him as a tight end 1 moving forward.
Yeah, definitely against Chargers too. I think that's definitely a good matchup for you.
Good call. And Alexander Mattison, I have him here only because, he is a, he's just one of the best handcuffs available in a ton of leagues for Dalvin Cook. If Dalvin Cook were to get hurt, Mattison becomes, top 7 or 8 player at the position, especially considering that the offense is rolling.
Alexander Mattison, he's another guy that we should kind of just have, with a house on the ground.
Yeah, with the house.
He's been here the whole week.
Yes.
No, not the whole season, not the whole week. Of course he's been here the whole week. Or 2 days in.
I think I got Zay Jones at 20. He had a really good week this past week. Christian Kirk was quiet, but Zay Jones ended up doing his thing. And I think it was because Marlon Humphrey moved into the slot this past week. Let me double check that for you guys. I know all the nerds, fellow nerds, are wondering, what happened to Christian Kirk this week, man? Isn't the slot supposed to be pretty good? I think Marlon Humphrey moved inside this past week. Let's see. Yes, he did. Marlon Humphrey hit out of all of his coverage snaps. Marlon Humphrey ran 33 of his 35 coverage snaps was in the slot. So that means that he was covering Christian Kirk in this game. He played a lot in the slot the week before too. So keep that in mind. And that's probably why Zay Jones was able to do his thing on the outside, because no Marlon Humphrey there. So that makes a lot of sense.
It is funny because Zay Jones, it's just these games where he gets such high target share and he doesn't score a touchdown. I mean, he had the 2-point conversion, but that's just been the way his career in Jacksonville has gone, so far. He goes 9 targets, then 4 targets, then 11 and 8, then 5, 10, then 3 and 5, and now 10 and 14 back to back. If it's
he's going to have 2 targets this week.
Yeah. If it's a Zay Jones day, it's a Zay Jones day.
If it's a Zay Jones day, you're definitely not starting him. That's for sure. Because you will not know when to start him. Like in games where like he was supposed to do well, he didn't. And in games like Baltimore where he wasn't supposed to do well, he absolutely goes bananas.
Yeah. When he's got Detroit, like you said, on deck. So
Detroit, Tennessee, not bad.
No, not bad. So Detroit, I'd be happier if I have to. I'd be happy starting Zay Jones at a flex if I have to. Because it's a good matchup. And Trevor Lawrence looked really good. Granted, they're still way out of playoff contention and the team isn't good yet. But Trevor Lawrence looked a lot closer to what he looked like in college than he has in the NFL so far.
He definitely has. I do want to talk about, since we have a little bit of time here, I do want to talk about a couple of quarterback streamers this week. And I'm trying to pull up the matchups here. Sorry, guys.
No problem. The quarterbacks, they're very finicky. They'll have on days, they'll have off days. But yeah, Mike White, I think we have on the waiver wire. He's a streamer, but you can definitely pick him up. He might have, long-term appeal.
Yeah. I'm looking at this week is a little bit tough. I think Jared Goff, against I would say Jared Goff and Trevor Lawrence can both be started against each other this week. That matchup could be a high-scoring one. I'm okay starting both of those guys this week. I'd rather start Trevor Lawrence because he's been getting it done. And so I feel like Trevor Lawrence, is a solid, maybe borderline QB1 this week against the Lions.
Could be.
Are you starting Deshaun Watson this week against the Texans?
Yeah, you have to. If you've had him sitting on your bench the whole time, there's a good chance a lot of people have done that.
Where are you ranking him this week? You ranking him as we'll find out tomorrow because tomorrow's our quarterback ranking show. But are you ranking him in the top 10?
I'd probably say 11 or 12.
Okay.
I have to
low
look over
low end QB1.
Low end QB1. And I think that's I don't want to call it ranking conservatively. I think that's where he's going to finish. Yeah. Because usually if he had a couple of weeks under his belt and he was, back in the groove of things and he's going against the Texans, I'd say, yeah, okay, he might be high end QB1. We'll see how he plays. But I think low end QB1 is a realistic expectation.
That's probably where I'll have him ranked too. I have Daniel Jones as a solid. I would say he's a back end QB1 this week against Washington at home. He's been getting it done for you for the most part. Didn't have an amazing game last week in a tough matchup, but he was solid. Still had like 15 points in standard, quarterback scoring.
What do you think of Jordan Love if he plays against the Bears?
I don't know what the feel is, man. Like I can't really, tell like what is going to happen in that game against the Bears. Like, are they just going to run the ball a ton? Are they going to let him air it out? He has the weapons, but the Bears, I don't know.
They just got torched by Mike White.
I'll probably have him ranked as like a top 20 quarterback, but I don't think I can have him ranked like top 15 or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to expect from him either, but that's kind of intriguing considering the way he played. Obviously, it was only like a drive or two last week.
Yeah,
against the Eagles.
There is some intrigue for sure.
Yeah, he.
Are you picking him up in a one quarterback league?
Not in a one quarterback league. In a two quarterback league, why not?
But, of course, well, two quarterback, you have to.
Yeah.
Shit. But yeah, no, that's good to note. I mean, like it's someone to kind of keep an eye on, right?
Yeah.
Let's see who else. Ryan Tannehill has been passing the ball more, and against the Eagles, like I have a feeling it's one of those games where Ryan Tannehill ends up doing his thing. Yeah. But over the last 3 games, 19 points, 20 points, 12 points last week against Cincinnati, he does things randomly. Like he can give you a 5-point game as well, and it's in Philly. It gives me a little bit pause.
Yeah, he's a streamer. He's been a streamer the whole season, and his production doesn't really say streamer, but he is in total points a high-end QB3 right now.
Which is weird, man. He's so up and down.
He looks good sometimes, and at other times he doesn't. And he gets away with it because of Derrick Henry sometimes. So
yeah. I like Jimmy G this week at home against the Dolphins. That could be a high scoring game. And I think that's really it. I don't love a lot of these other streaming quarterbacks, to be honest with you. Andy Dalton, in Tampa, I'm okay with it. I don't love it. But it's possible that, you could probably rank him as like a top 16, 17 quarterback this week.
Yeah, I think
that's it. That's all we got, guys. Just wanted to kind of throw some QB streams at you at the end of this episode. Hopefully you guys can get who you want on the waiver wire tonight. And we'll be back tomorrow with our quarterback ranking show, running back rankings in that show as well. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. All right. Take it easy. Later.